Being here today. For us this morning is the Chairman's Mark for FY15 Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration and Related Agencies Appropriation Bill. The Subcommittee's discretionary 302B allocation is $20.88 billion. This bill meets the allocation. Discretionary spending in this bill is equal to the FY14 enacted level. When the subcommittee began its FY15 appropriations process, I asked my colleagues to keep in mind three guiding principles. We talked about these at almost each of the hearings. First of all, ensuring the proper use of funds through robust oversight. Second, ensuring the appropriate level of regulation to protect producers and the public. And number three, ensuring funding is targeted to vital programs. These three principles guide us from the first review of the President's budget request to the content of the bill that's before you this morning. This basic framework helps us set priorities during the 10 budget and oversight hearings this year, which covered all of USDA's mission areas, as well as FDA and Commodity Futures Trading Commission. They also formed a framework for us to consider the mini bill and report requests that we received from our colleagues. It's positive to note that there was a lot of interest in this bill, and it's probably higher than ever. We received over 3,900 requests from around 326 members to either support, deny, or amend funding levels in the numerous accounts in the bill, and to include new bill or report language. We have tried to address these requests in a bipartisan manner, providing programmatic funding or by including language in the bill or report in accordance with the House rules. And as such, there are no earmarks in the bill. There are two particular issues I'd like to mention. First, let me bring to your attention that this bill allocates GSA rent and the Department of Homeland Security costs to USDA's individual agencies. In the past, we have provided funding for these costs in one consolidated account. If you hear a colleague remark on the larger increases they see in the bill, please explain to them this point. We believe that by decentralizing rent and security costs, USDA's agencies will be motivated to control costs and therefore providing savings. Second, this bill includes language that provides schools an opportunity to apply for a waiver if they are experiencing financial difficulty meeting the nutrition standards created by the Healthy, Hungry-Free Kids Act of 2010. As background, Congress included similar report language in the FY14 conference report. The language at that time directed USDA to establish a waiver process that gives schools the flexibility that they have been requesting. This language that was received was agreement on both majority and the minority and both of the sides of the Capitol on the House and Senate side. However, the Secretary of Agriculture subsequently informed the House and Senate that they did not have the authority to implement the waivers. We took the next logical step in this bill by providing them the legal authority to grant such waivers. While along with my colleagues we're concerned about the national problems brought on by child obesity, I also believe we need to be sensitive to the challenges of local school districts. I continually hear from my schools in Alabama about the challenges and the costs they're facing and their desperation for flexibility and relief so that they can operate a program that serves healthy food that the kids will eat. I will bet many of you are hearing similar things from your schools as well. If you're not, then the waiver process will not have an impact on your schools and the way that they're operating. If your schools are successfully implementing the nutritional standards and operating in the black, they wouldn't qualify and would not need a waiver. But for schools suffering economic hardship and needing more time to implement and adjust to the new standards, this waiver gives them the flexibility schools are asking for. I'm happy to present to you a bill that will impact every American every day of the year. We support Americans, farmers, and ranchers that are actually very vital to our nation's economy and health and well-being. We are blessed with such a diverse and plentiful food supply that is partially made possible through programs in this bill, which assist farmers and ranchers across the nation. We support those at home in need with food and housing and provide rural businesses with rural businesses low-interest loans and grants that help them sustain local economies. We help others around the world that face starvation and malnutrition. We support research and development in agriculture to improve productivity and stability. We support the oversight of commodity markets, providing confidence for business, traders, investors, and the public. We support a safe food supply and also effective and for drug and drug devices. We are fortunate that in this nation, we can support these vital programs. And in closing, that I would ask everyone's support for this bill before us this morning. At this time, I'd like to ask the ranking member, Mr. Farr, for any opening comments that he may have, and then we'll hear from the distinguished chairman of the full committee, Mr. Rogers.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Adderhold. I don't have any written comments, but I have some comments. I think that this bill is sort of a 90-10 bill. It's 90% great. I mean, that's an A rating. But 10% of it is hard to swallow. And the swallowing part is really on the foods. I also want to say that my staff said that this is the most congenial staff work, working with your side, historically remarkably worked well, and I want to congratulate you on that. And I also want to congratulate you on something that we all care about, and that's a more stable world, and you've plussed up the Food for Peace and the PL 480 program. It still needs some reforms, and I think the committee, we can work on those reforms. But it's pretty much a good bill. Of the parts that aren't so good, and it really concerns me, a couple of them. One is the nutrition side. I mean, to allow schools to opt out and keep the money, I might add, of being able to have to serve fresh fruits and vegetables is really precedent setting, and I think a very wrong move. And I think that Congress is going to get extremely criticized for this. We don't allow kids to opt out of math because it's tough, or science because it's tough. Changing the American diet is so fundamental to bringing down our healthcare costs. I mean, what we realize in this huge debate on costs of healthcare in America is that it's essential that we start growing healthier people. And where do we start growing them? We start growing them as kids. And where do those kids get access to a proper diet? It's in the schools. And if we allow these schools now to opt out, I think it's just totally wrong. And besides, they don't get any penalty for opting out. They get to keep the money to buy fresh fruits and vegetables and don't have to buy it. So that I'm very critical of. I'm very critical of the fact that, and you said we don't have any earmarks, but we are clever at being able to talk around earmark. We put in a section there that prohibits the use, exclude or restrict the eligibility of any variety of fresh, whole, or cut vegetables. That's essentially the potato lobby, and it's for the WIC program. And the WIC program is the program that feeds infants and children and mothers that are pregnant. And I was sort of talking with my staff, and I said, how do potatoes get into that? And they said, well, you know, we have different kinds of milk. We certainly have soy milk, and we have almond milk. And I said, is there potato milk? And they said, yeah, that's vodka. But we, you know, I, for all intents and purposes, I think that's earmark, and I think it's wrong to move, particularly in the WIC program. And lastly, I'd like to say, because I really appreciate your attention as chair to the, and you said it as one of your goals here, was to increase funding for vital programs. Having said that, you whacked the heck out of the Commodities Future Trading Commission, and you know that's $62 million below what the president requested, and he requested less this year than last year, and we whacked the heck out of it last year. And I think that that's very dangerous to take something that was so fundamental to our economic crisis, the derivative swaps and so on, and take the very policing agency that we've established under Dodd-Frank to shore that up with staff that are able to make sure that these companies register and we follow what's going on. They don't, you know, they're only the referee. They're not the coach, and not give them enough money to be able to do that when they need that staffing, I think is the wrong way to go. But by and large, it's been fun working with you, and I really appreciate that we got an awful lot of good things in this bill as well.
Again, thank you, Mr. Farr. Again, we're pleased to have the full chairman and ranking member of the full committee of appropriations with us. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Rogers as the full committee chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to congratulate you, Mr. Farr, and the committee, subcommittee, on putting together a responsible bill. the number that we gave you was not a thrilling number, but I think you've made it work in a fair and reasonable way. 20.88 billion on the discretionary side. Of course, most of the money in agriculture goes on the mandatory side of the budget, which we're not considering here, of course. Nita Loy and I have determined that we're going to try to pass all these 12 bills, come heck or high water. And toward that end, this bill will help us move along at a very brisk pace. In fact, they tell me that this is the earliest ever that we considered appropriations bills. And of course, it was driven, that was allowed to happen because of the Murray-Ryan budget deal that set the House and Senate appropriated number at the same level for fiscal 14 and 15. So we're taking advantage of that break that we got to pass these bills. The fiscal 14 omnibus bill that we had to put together over the holidays to fund the government for fiscal 14 showed that if you give this committee some rope, we'll corral the horse. How about that, boy?
I was wondering where you was going.
About broke the hanger.
You know, and with the responsible, adequate funding that we provided for fiscal 14, we can do this because the 15 number is almost identical. So, and that helps us a lot, passing the bills. The bill that you have before us, I think, is fair. It's reasonable. The stagnation in our economy that we've seen in recent years, overspending, overtaxing, overregulating, that we've seen out of this administration, continues to be a drag on job creation. Millions of people in this country have simply pulled out of the labor market altogether. This bill, I think, is another example of this Congress, especially this committee's commitment to restoring restraint and thoughtfulness to the budgeting process, while also ensuring that the nation's farms continue to be among the most productive in the world and that our rural communities remain vibrant. You have money in the bill that will allow the USDA, the FDA, and other agencies to fulfill their core duties. And it's always difficult to fund worthwhile programs at high levels due to the budget constraints that we work under. But I'm proud that you provided responsible funding for programs and services vital to our rural communities, such as rural housing loans, water and waste facilities, rural electric and broadband services, so important in this new world in which we find ourselves in the countryside. And as our country continues to grapple with the epidemic of prescription drug abuse, which, by the way, I'm told is killing more people than car wrecks, and yet it doesn't get the headlines that it should, prescription drug abuse. But I'm pleased that in this bill, you prod the FDA, the agency charged with primary responsibility for ensuring the safety of medications, to hasten the development of abuse deterrent formulations and other emerging technologies that will put a dent in this devastating scourge. In my district, we were ground zero 10 years ago for the OxyContin epidemic, as the CDC calls it, epidemic, prescription drug abuse. Wonderful drug for terminally ill cancer patients in the life. 12-hour release. An opioid that was really fulfilling a real need. And then young people especially discovered that if you crushed that pill, took away the 12-hour release feature, you got the entire 12 hours slug in a split second. And highly addictive, almost impossible to kick that. Until finally, you and all of us forced Purdue Pharma, who makes OxyContin, to make it so it could not be abused. You can't crush the new pill. You can't shoot it up that way. You can't chew it and get that time released. And that has really helped solve, in a big way, the prescription drug abuse for opioids, OxyContin. Then they switched to Opana until we forced that manufacturer to make it abuse deterrent. And we thought we had things going the right way. And the FDA, under Dr. Hamburg, was, I think, doing the right thing in preventing any opioid from being able to be sold on the market that was not abuse deterrent. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, the FDA approved a drug called Zohydro. 5 times more powerful than Vicodin, an opioid that's pure, and hydrocodone pill, whose deadly impact can easily be seen. The advisory committee of FDA, people who know what they're doing, scientists, doctors, and the like, voted 11-2 not to go this route right now. The company that makes the hydro tells us that they're going to make it abuse deterrent in a matter of months. And so we asked FDA, why did you approve this drug when, by waiting a few months, it will be abuse deterrent? We didn't get an answer. I'm so sorely disappointed. This bill, I think, makes a modest effort to correct that problem. And I appreciate the chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, this is a good bill. I think it deserves the support of all of us. And I want to congratulate you and thank you for a great job. Mr. Farr, thank you again for, at least we're 90%. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for those comments. And Ms. Lowy, thank you for being here.
Well, I too want to thank the chairman, the ranking member. You put together a bill which does provide adequate funding for vital programs such as international food aid, nutritional assistance, food safety, and I too understand that you worked very well together, very cooperatively, which is a good thing. I certainly want to thank the chairman for increasing funding for the McGovern-Dole food program by $13 million, restoring funding for Food for Peace. However, I would have preferred the bill also include the administration's proposal to allow up to 25% of Title II resources to be made available in cash for emergencies to better respond to multiple high-level crises around the world. This change alone would have allowed USA to reach an estimated 2 million more people in chronically food insecure communities. The bill also doesn't fund changes included in the recently passed Farm Bill that would make it easier for local and regional procurement of food products. The bill provides sufficient funds for nutritional assistance programs such as WIC and SNAP, provides needed funds for food safety programs within the FDA and the Food Safety Inspection Service. While many of the funding decisions are appropriate, I have deep concerns, however, about 3 controversial riders. First, bill language would make white potatoes. Kids eat a lot of French fries, but this would make white potatoes eligible for purchase. And we eat the leftovers when they don't finish them, but anyway, for purchase by WIC participants. This change does violate the purpose of the WIC program to only include foods based on documented nutritional deficiencies. According to the latest data from the Institute of Medicine, such a deficiency does not presently exist for white potatoes. When it comes to the WIC food package, we must follow the most current science and data available. The Department of Agriculture also maintains its commitment to scientific integrity, and earlier this year committed to start its review of the WIC package a year early. I don't see the need to revisit this issue once again. I'm also opposed and frankly surprised with new language that limits the summer feeding program pilot only to rural areas. Frankly, it always amazed me, and I began talking to people who are strong advocates for this program as I am, and I find it interesting that we're calling this a pilot. When we created this program, it was intended to serve children in both rural and urban areas in order to test alternative approaches for distributing aid to school children in the summer months. Excluding children from urban areas jeopardizes the effectiveness of the demonstration program. It's also mean-spirited, and I know that members of this committee are not mean-spirited, so it's really puzzling to me. And I hope that we can work on this as the bill moves along. Hunger isn't bound by per capita population data, and children in urban areas shouldn't be penalized because of where they live. Lastly, this bill would begin to back away from much-needed efforts to make school meals healthier. According to the CDC, as of 2012, more than one-third of children and adolescents were obese and more likely to become obese adults, and thus are at a much greater risk of developing heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, and forms of cancer. While some may not agree with the scheduled changes, especially children who would prefer pizza, hot dogs, and hamburgers on the menu, such dire health risks necessitate coordinated federal action, and schools should support and teach healthy eating habits. And I just want to say that sometimes it takes a little creativity. I visit these school lunch programs when I visit the school, and some schools are just really doing wonderful things. And kids are eating some healthy food if you have some creative cooks around. So I do hope that we can improve these shortcomings as this bill moves forward. And then I thank you again for working together.
Thank you. Chloe, is there any further discussion? Any member have any comments?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Laura.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to acknowledge Chairman Aderholt and the ranking members for his hard work on the bill. Having chaired the subcommittee in the past, I know firsthand the amount of work that it takes, so I thank both of you. That being said, I cannot in good conscience support this bill as it stands. This subcommittee was given a substantial allocation compared to other subcommittees. And in reference to that, such as labor, health, and human services, and education, where I serve as an ranking member. As a matter of fact, we're about $1.1 billion below where we were the last go-round. And yet, even with this allocation, the bill before us fails to make the necessary investments to protect consumers. Let me give you several examples. At a time when outbreaks of foodborne illness are a continual challenge, this bill funds the Food Safety and Inspection Service, FSIS, at $6 million below last year. This bill assumes the savings from the unproven poultry inspection pilot. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Chairman, if that is correct, and that means less inspectors. That really concerns me. Just last night, if you listened to the news this morning, 1.8 million pounds of beef linked to E. coli was recalled. 11 people are ill. Several are hospitalized. And by the way, it is one of the most difficult strains of E. coli, which affects the very young and the very old. we should not be cutting back on our food safety inspection efforts when we are seeing recalls that are similar to this on nearly a monthly basis. The fact is that E. coli, as they have demonstrated this morning on the news, is on the pattern. Now, we have Memorial Day coming up this weekend. This is a product from Michigan that has gone all over the nation. And one of the things that we're going to say to consumers is, cook it well. But the fact is, there should not be E. coli on the hamburgers that people are going to consume this weekend. And we have the opportunity to do something about that, and we choose not to. And while I appreciate the $25 million this bill includes for the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, I think we need to commit more substantial resources to support the full implementation of this indispensable law for reducing foodborne illness. I think we also have to be realistic, particularly since we know that we are never going to authorize user fees. I would make that same admonition to the administration, and that would continue to put these in there. We're not going to do it as well. So therefore, we should provide the FDA with the amount of money they need to protect people from foodborne illness. I'm concerned about the pharmaceutical drugs issue. I'm disturbed that the amount given to address the compounding drug issue is funded at half, $12 million, of the full request for $25 million. If you will recall, over 700 people were affected with fungal meningitis as a result of compounded drugs. 48 people died. 48 people died. This was across 19 states. This bill also, I mean, it's really staggering that where life and death is concerned here, we are shortchanging this agency in terms of what it needs to do to address these health issues. The bill also leaves the Commodity Futures Trading Commission dangerously underfunded, $62.4 million below the President's request at a time when Americans want to see more accountability from Wall Street after a historic financial crisis. Even more troubling here is an unprecedented industry and special interest giveaway in the bill to the detriment of health, welfare, the safety of our kids and our families. For example, the legislation includes what I consider to be overreaching report language that aims to undermine the implementation of menu labeling, with carve-outs to different corporate interests, even though we know this transformative law will help families make healthier decisions. You might note that who are excluded here, movie theaters. I don't know if you've been to the movie theater lately, but they are demonstrably cafes, bistro, serving all kinds of food, yet they would like to be exempted from menu labeling. Jalapeno poppers, mozzarella sticks, nachos. What's the calorie count? They want to be excluded from this effort. Even gas stations which sell food as well. There are attempts in this bill to waive requirements for schools to meet standards and to improve school meals, remove unhealthy snack food in our nation's schools. Why? Tell me, why would the Congress, already maligned for labeling pizza a vegetable, and I know something about pizza, now seek to weaken the federal child nutrition programs and through the appropriations process, no less, other please the industry. Over 91% of our schools have complied. And yes, indeed, the USDA provides technical assistance, has repeatedly said that they will work with those schools who are having difficulty at this time to make sure that they can comply with the law. We also know that many of these children eating school meals experience increased hunger during the summer months when school is out. I join my colleague, Mrs. Lowy. The USDA's pilot summer EBT program provides an important way to get at this problem, including feeding nearly 6,500 kids last year in Connecticut. I'm concerned that this committee would make this a rural-only program, as if summer hunger for kids is in one part of this nation and not a nationwide phenomenon. This is a program that has been proved to be effective in all types of communities. All kids and their families need additional nutrition in the summer, no matter where they live. Your geography should not determine whether you can eat and eat healthy or not. That's not the nation. That's not the nation that we aspire to be. I'm really glad that the WIC Life-Saving Program has been allocated funds to meet the estimated caseload. Deeply concerned about the attempt to circumvent the USDA Institute of Medicine process determining the appropriate foods to offer in the WIC food package. Once again, the bill puts industry desires here above the findings and the recommendations of impartial scientists. Science-based decisions have served our children and our nation well for decades. And Congress has never before prescribed the details of the federal nutrition programs. We should not start to do that now. Fresh white potatoes are not currently included in supplemental food packages because the research overwhelmingly shows that white potatoes are not lacking in the diets of low-income women and children. In fact, the white potato is the #1 consumed vegetable in the country, and consumption of other vegetables is greatly lacking. Yet, the potato industry continues to lobby Congress to take unprecedented action and dictate to USDA what should be included in a nutrition assistance program. Supporters of this bill will no doubt suggest that in a fiscally tight environment, we cannot afford to make critical investments in WIC or in food safety or financial regulation or in any of the other priorities that are shortchanged in this bill. But budgeting is about values and it is about choices. The majority has chosen to underfund these priorities. And in any case, funding levels have nothing to do with the many troubling policies that I just laid out. These are simply naked attempts to use the appropriations process to do the bidding of industry and special interests at the expense of the public interest. I cannot support this bill. We have to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Laurel. Any other member like to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleagues have already done a wonderful job, so I will try to be brief, but thank you to the Chair and the Ranking Member and to all of our hardworking staff for doing so much work to put this bill together. And I do want to say I appreciate many of the funding levels of the bill. I'm very pleased that in many areas the bill does match the funding levels requested by the President, including things that are important to me and farmers in my district, like value-added producer grants, SARE, AFRI, Farmers Market Nutrition Program, the organic transition. There are a lot of things that I'm very happy that we are all going to support, making sure that they're adequately funded. My colleagues have done a great job already addressing my concerns, and I won't take up too much time, but I do want to concur certainly on the language that's in this bill that I do think is an end run around the school lunch nutrition standards that were already passed by Congress. I think in this time when we're seeing some progress in the decline in childhood obesity, but we still have huge concerns about that and about the rise in childhood diabetes, we should not be undermining better nutrition standards in our school lunch programs. I am also concerned about some of the other riders in this bill, particularly since we just passed the Farm Bill and it's not been a very long time since that language has been out there. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to particularly mention the language that blocks the implementation of the GIPSA rule. GIPSA, I think, is very important protection for farmers from unfair practices, generally by big corporations that they have very little defense against. And I don't think that we're here to put the interests of corporate farming ahead of small family farmers. I don't think that's what the American public wants us to do. And I do think particularly in this time when we're seeing an enormous transition in some of the opportunities available to small farmers, rural farmers, local food opportunities for people, I think it's important that we keep that in mind. I will just add one last thought. I thought it was great to hear from the Chair that there was a unprecedented number of comments on this bill from our colleagues throughout Congress, and I think that's a reflection of the fact that it's not just if you represent farmers that you're interested in the Farm Bill and agricultural funding today. I think that the movement around increasing opportunities for farming and locally grown products expands to almost literally everybody's district today, and certainly concerns about nutrition is everybody's business in Congress. So I'm pleased to hear that you had so many requests for funding. So I'll close there, and thank you for letting me have a chance to come.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Let me briefly respond to Mr. Morrow's comments about WIC. Sure, the bill is $93 million below fiscal 14 levels, $200 million below the fiscal 15 request. However, the request was for 6.823. But USDA reduced the estimate to 6.623, which is the figure that the chairman put in the bill. So it's consistent with what USDA asked for. They lowered their participation estimate to 8.5 million women, infants, and children a month. And they're projecting to have a much greater amount in carryover funds. And therefore less is needed in appropriations because of the carryover. Within that amount, 25 million is given for states to transfer from paper vouchers to a more efficient electronic benefit transfer system, EventID they call it, that will help identify waste or abuse within the program. So, all appearances to me, we completely fulfilled USDA's request.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I said in my remarks, I'm glad that WIC, a life-saving program, has been allocated funds to meet the estimated caseload. I am not questioning that. What I am questioning is the attempt to circumvent USDA and the IOM's determination of what the WIC food package is like by the introduction of white potatoes, which I think we have so much data and so much information about this issue that it shouldn't be included. I am not questioning the allocation overall for WIC, and I understand that the pieces involved with that. So,
one thing, let me respond to Mr. Laurel mentioned about the poultry modernization rule. The staff reminded me that the funding level for FSIS includes savings for implementation of the poultry savings rule, and we're 3.8 million above the president's request. The secretary has indicated they're planning to finalize the rules, so the bill includes these savings. So we will monitor the process, but we are 3.8 million above the president's request.
well, the issue there is, Mr. Chairman, thank you, but the issue being, and I don't know if anyone, you probably have, it was a first for me. I had the opportunity 2 weeks ago to go out to Virginia, where I went to two chicken slaughtering plants. One that had the hemp process in place and one that did not. It's my understanding that, and the USDA knows the strength of my feelings on this issue, that we are going to cut the inspection inspectors by about a third. And that is the savings. And that's what I'm concerned about, that the bill assumes the savings of a program that has been untested and unproven, or maybe it's been tested, but it's unproven. And again, the reason why I went is to visually just see what the inspection process is about. And at the non-hemp plant, an inspector has 1.8 seconds to look at and inspect the chicken. If you move to 175 chickens per minute, it is less than that. So I'm greatly concerned about a reduction in inspectors, and I'm also concerned about food safety. And in addition to that, I watched this workforce, the unbelievable stress that they have to work on, to see these literally chickens just flying by you and having to you know, to recognize, and I saw that process too, which is really wild, as they pick what the work. I'm worried about workers. I'm worried about food safety, and I'm worried about that lack of an inspection service with trained inspectors and performance standards, none of which is set out in the hemp rule. But we're taking, we're presuming that that is going forward. We're taking the savings from a cutback in inspectors, and I just think it's the wrong way to move forward. But I appreciate your comment.
The other issue I wanted, I have a couple people mentioned about the waiver, where schools are given the opportunity to be granted a waiver if they're experiencing financial difficulty meeting the nutrition standards created by the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act 2010. A couple of people have mentioned about what we've heard from industry. I have not talked to industry about this. I don't know if they've contacted your office about it, but on my side, I've not heard from industry. Who I'm hearing from is the lunch ladies that I've gone to meet with, and the kids, and that's where I'm hearing it from. So industry, I don't know where they are on it. So I just wanted to clarify that. Mention industry. I don't know anything about industry.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, and I think the Secretary stated very clearly that, you know, that first of all, the 90% of the schools are successfully implementing them, and that USDA has continued to show flexibility in implementing these new standards, and really what we ought to be doing is partnering with USDA states and school districts and parents to have kids have more access to healthy food, not less. And I think that sort of leave it up. I mean, I would even appreciate if the school board had to make a decision. I think this is an administrative decision that can be made by those folks in the lunchroom saying we don't want to participate in the program, we want to opt out. They get to keep the money. There's no penalty for it, and there's no real disclosure that the parents know that this school's opting out. And I think if at least, I mean, I don't like the idea at all, but at least it ought to be transparent.
Now, if I could add to my colleague, Mr. Forrest, USDA has said that they're going to work with the schools, and they're not going to be penalized if they're making an effort to meet the standards. There's been every effort to reach out, over 90%. Let's try to, as my colleague, Mr. Farr, has said, it takes, you know, we've become a fast food culture, and you know, you say to kids, you want French fries or do you want carrots? You know, but if you have carrots that are there, then they'll grab for it and they will do it. But it takes time to you know, to get there. I watch my own grandkids, you know, and what you put before them. But just again, it just seems that we go in the wrong direction. We ought to be trying to help implement in a you know, not an overly prescriptive way, but in a way in which we can make sure that kids are getting the healthy food that they need. Again, you give them the choice for the kids. Heck, you think a piece of chocolate versus, you know, this is the nature of the beast here. You know, that's what it is.
But the problem is, those kids are saying, don't want it. We'll go somewhere else and get some food, and they do. And I think in that aspect, you're actually doing the kids a disservice because you're trying to force them to eat things they will not eat, and they'll choose to go outside and get some food out there.
Mr. Chairman, you're a parent.
I'm a grandparent.
And a grandparent. I balance off what I try to do with my grandkids. They don't want to eat this, they don't want to do that. I'm just saying is that I just think that we have an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that they are eating healthy foods. Now, I also know that the USDA has done a great deal of work on looking at the competitive food side to cut down on the junk food and in the vending machines and all of that, so that they don't have another place to go to deal with that.
If you're able to lock the doors to the cafeteria and force them
no, it's
either
not.
eat that or nothing.
But no, it's that is.
They're going outside and getting food, and it's more non-nutritional.
Not 91%. 91% of our schools are there. Let's work with that 9% and see how we can make sure that they're eating, that we can bridge this gap. Well, no, but I'm just saying is that, no, this is a way, again, this is a way to open a door to what would really roll back on all of the attempts that we have made to provide.
We're going to have,
healthy
this bill will come
lunch.
before the full committee.
Oh,
We'll
yes, I know.
have more discussion about it.
We will
But
indeed.
I wanted to clarify the fact that this is not industry driven, and it just really, that's one thing that really concerns me, if that is out there, because I'm talking to the lunch ladies who see they do all this work and then it's thrown in the garbage at the end of the day. And so we'll have discussion on it unless you got really something you want to add. But I've talked to members on both sides of the aisle, and they're hearing from their lunch ladies, and they are upset. And
I just want to say one thing, because I have to, as another grandmother. You know, and I visit these programs all the time, and you don't have enough really creative people working in the cafeterias that they can make some of this healthy food a little bit more appetizing.
well,
and I think it's something we can work on.
They're not able to be creative. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, we can
It's
talk
not
about this
accurate.
again,
It's
because
not
I think it is a challenge, and I see it in my grandkids. I have 2 out of 8 that only eat healthy foods. Goodness knows why. They follow one of, and the others so-so. But it is a matter of working with them and trying to make all the healthy stuff as attractive as we can. But this could take hours, so
Yeah.
thank you, Mr.
Have we got Mr. Yoder?
I just wanted to briefly, Mr. Chairman, just commend the work of the committee, yourself,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member Farr. This is my first term on this subcommittee, and I've been very impressed with the passion of folks on both sides of the aisle on a lot of issues that on surface may seem not as exciting and interesting, can become very exciting and interesting in this committee.
It's a very exciting and interesting
It is,
subcommittee.
and there's got a lot of history here. I want to note Mr. Latham. I think this will be his final subcommittee meeting on the Agriculture Subcommittee. And my understanding from the committee historical documents that he was one of the first members ever on the subcommittee when it was created back in the 1800s. And so,
Looking good, Tom. You're looking good.
You wanted to move up in the committee. Remember that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. And you mentioned this is your first term on the committee, and this is what, your 9th term on the committee? And Mr. Latham has served this subcommittee well since he first got on the committee in 1997, and he's certainly been very dedicated to it, has been a strong advocate for the protection of farmers, ranchers, consumers, and all of rural America. So, Mr. Latham, we will miss you on this subcommittee, but we wish you the best in all the future, and I just wanted to say that because I understand that you do have a motion that you would like to bring.
Thank you very much for the kind words, and it's been an honor to serve on this subcommittee with a lot of good friends here. You wouldn't have us getting today.
Thank you so much.
But no, it's been great here, and I appreciate it. A lot of good friends, and learned.
Before your motion, I've served on this committee a very long time, and there's probably no one on the committee that I've had probably Jack Kingston and myself and Tom have had a great, tremendous friendship. And on a number of issues we clearly disagree, but on many we do. And you mentioned several other issues with farmers and ranchers, but Tom Latham has been a very strong voice on the issue of food safety. We partnered on the food safety caucus, and hopefully someday I'm going to pursue, Tom, a single food agency as we move forward here. So, but it's been a pleasure, real pleasure, and an honor to serve with you.
Mr. Chairman, I move the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
No?
Oh, come on.
The ayes have it. The motion is approved. I ask unanimous consent that staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the measures just approved. Please ensure that the materials before you are returned to the subcommittee before you leave the room. Meeting adjourned.
Good job. Very good.